Start then, apologies for absence.
Apologies received from Councillor Ellsbury, Ali and Madsen.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, any declarations of interest? No. No declarations. There's no chairperson's announcements. So item 5, HR and Equalities. Meeting minutes on the 28th of February. Well, I'm the only one here, I think. Move.
Myself?
Yeah, I was second. I was there as well, last one.
Okay, thanks. Item 6 then, reports for information, and if we could go to the first one, which is the brigade managers' salaries and numbers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'll pick this one up.
Yeah.
Morning members, this report is a report compiled by the Local Government Association. It's a report that is dated 2020. For some reason there was a bit of a time lag with these reports being published. So just wanted to make that point to you. It's not a very recent report, but it was published in the last few months. So we do share it with HR and Equalities as the committee for reviewing principal officer pay. It's a standard report that LGA issue. As I say, it's a couple of years out of date in terms of the numbers, but it is useful for you to see what the landscape looks like across the whole of the fire and rescue services in England and Wales. As I said, the reason for bringing this report to HR and Equalities is because the authority's pay policy statement references an approach to reviewing principal officer pay. It's a twin track approach. First off, the NJC issue the brigade managers pay award as a central negotiated arrangement, and the other part of the track is that HR and Equalities make recommendations to Fire Authority on the level of remuneration for principal officers. So it's a useful piece of information from a benchmarking perspective. Bear in mind it is 2 years out of date, but shared with you for information. The key findings that are quite helpful are on page 2 of the report. Hopefully you've all had a chance to have a look at it. It captures the basic pay average levels, that is, for chief fire officers, and there's also some information about gender and wider equality data there as well. So I'll just pause there. As I say, it's compiled by the LGA. It's useful as a benchmark and to review what's going on around us. As soon as these are issued, then we tend to share them with HR and Equalities as the committee that determines pay for brigade managers. So
Thank you, Alison. Okay, thank you. I do note that the female members and ethnic minorities are still quite low, the figures. Is there any member? No? If somebody would move that then.
Move.
No preference. Okay.
Sorry. I just wanted to ask whether any, because we've had the other report as well, and whether there's information that's cross-referencing those two things.
So yeah, thank you, Councillor Cupp. So in terms of the report that the external consultant provided at the Fire Authority's request, that information is generally taken from the FRSs directly. So whilst the LGA annually do a review of salaries at principal officer or brigade manager level, the external consultant's report used information directly from the annual accounts and pay policy statements for each FRS. So it's a more up-to-date report, the one that you received recently. So yeah, it sort of builds on this report and it's a bit more accurate and you know, references current day salaries.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. If we could go to the training and development then, Dean.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members as well. This is just a brief overview, a bit of a summary for yourselves in terms of the investors and people. It's been integrated into the service since 2017, so we're 5 years into a journey now of collaborating, that engagement and communication with staff, just to benchmark ourselves against similar organisations, just to see where we are in terms of people and well-being. So in 2017, we undertook the first IIP survey internally within the service, and we achieved what's called a silver award in 2017. Now, the awards are graded in 4 areas, and silver being the second one. So we did quite well, but obviously there was a few areas of improvements and some recommendations that came off that report in 2017. But also there was plenty of positives for us as a service, things that we could build on quite essentially over the next few years. Now, Appendix 1 of the report provides you with an updated IIP survey, which was conducted in 2020. It's quite a lengthy document, but I'll provide just a little bit of context around what's within that report as I just go through this. So the 4 areas, as I said, was you marked on is developed, silver, gold or platinum. So we achieved that silver award in 2017. The new award was then credited to us in 2020. So we undertook a refreshment of that IIP survey in 2020. And it's pleasing to report that we achieved what's called a gold. So we moved up in an award for the service there. Some of those indicators we moved up from 2017. There was improvements in 8 out of the 9 areas, which is quite pleasing for us as a service. And that undertook interviews and surveys with 175 people within the organisation, covering all different breadths and areas of the organisation, so station-based staff, training, headquarters-based staff, etc. So we got a good breadth of understanding where we were as a service. So the Gold Award in 2020, just to provide a little bit of context, some of the areas that we are very proud of was the collaboration working between operational and corporate staff, which was highlighted, value of the teamwork and a sense of family within the organisation, cohesive ELT with a high degree of passion to ensure the organisation is successful and is succeeding. There was also an increase in the use of data. So we recognise that from 2017, built on this, put a bit of investment into a BMIS, which is a recording system that we utilise within the service. And there was an organisation's focus on well-being, which has seen a significant benefit to our staff. Some of the areas to work on in 2020, some of the recommendations from the report was around promotional processes and some of the feedback. Recognition has improved, however, areas within the service where this needs to be strengthened. And there was a little bit around front-end engagement and, more importantly, the rationale for some of that engagement as well. As a result of this 2020 report, we also undertook then a well-being survey with IIP. It's the first time we'd undertaken this as a service. This was quite an in-depth survey. It looked at 3 areas: physical well-being, psychological well-being and social well-being of our staff. 3 indicators with 4 themes in each. 4 areas we needed slight improvement with some of the recommendations, but we had 7 areas in silver and 1 gold. So we are the first organisation in Wales to achieve a silver award in well-being. Just to provide a little bit of context again in terms of the wellbeing survey, areas to be proud of. Teamwork and relationships are important and one of the best aspects of working for the service. A number of people spoke about the support from line managers in the service. Physical wellbeing is strongly supported with a variety of facilities, initiatives and programs to support all the staff. Psychological well-being highlighted as a credit to the service with direct mention of incident tagging. So where there's an incident of significance, what we will do is have control to tag that, and then that provides an additional level, a bit of mitigation around well-being. So it's an extra bit of support for our frontline staff. Passionate about people leading and driving well-being throughout the service. And the areas to work on from the wellbeing survey is the use of data to measure the impact of the wellbeing goals and support future improvements. So that's again that little bit of investment in our BMIS. Continuing raising awareness and understanding of wellbeing across the service, ensuring that accountability lies with the managers and their responsibility. Develop a working strategy for wellbeing, which is now well in place within the service, and reviewing how pressure and workloads are assessed and supported. The BMIS, as I just mentioned there, that's online system. As a result of those two surveys, there's now a reporting mechanism within the service, lots of working groups. There's a front-end engagement group as well called Shout Forum, which was started in 2017. That allows our staff that little bit of engagement and communication with us to raise some issues, as well as obviously the face-to-face engagement that we undertake with our staff as well. The next steps for us in terms of IIP will be we'll have a review of our gold award, and that will be conducted in February 2023, October 2022, sorry. So then there'll be a decision to be made by the executive leadership team of the service to the next steps. Do we undertake a refresh and new accreditation of IIP? And also the wellbeing one will be undertaken in February 23. So that's our current position with IIP. So if there's any questions.
Lynn, you wanted to say?
Yeah, that's a question. Yeah, investors in people. When I first heard about it 35, 40 years ago, I didn't know what the hell it meant, sort of thing. And yeah, and when you look at it, it explains itself. Investing in staff, etc. Now, at the passing out parade a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was absolutely fantastic, I looked at those young men and young women, and I then looked at the chief and I asked myself, how long would it take from somebody, one of those new recruits, to get to the position of chief over a number of years? How long would that take?
There's a set process. So we've used what's called a workforce progression, and that's been in place now for a number of years within the service. And that gives a number of timelines that you can move from role to role to role. Those are recently been reviewed, and there's a new process coming in called Pathways. So the Pathways releases some of those timelines and timeframes that were in situ historically within the service. So those are coming in sort of supervisory level first, then it'll be middle managers, then it'll be strategic at a later date. So the timelines will be quite fluid. It'll allow people to move a little bit more freely, and we're not aligned to a set of a specific timeline for people to move through roles. It's more around about the development of individuals, make sure that they've got the requisite skills, the right development, the qualifications that might be needed to move to the next role. So the timelines will be removed. It'll be when people are ready and they've got the requisite skills and the knowledge and the qualifications needed to move to the next level. So the timelines, I'm guessing, will reduce, or it'll allow us to have a bit more freedom.
Because I can know the first run from firefighter, what is it, leading fire officer, fireman, is it, or fire?
Crew manager now, is it?
There's after that sub officer.
Yeah, to be watch manager now. Yeah.
Because I can always remember when I was in the Vale from Morgan, you get a new guy coming in, station officer, with brand new pips on the shoulder, and not a mark on the tunic, like that. He's a bit green. Yeah, but no, fine. Yeah.
Councillor Norton?
Thank you, Chair.
Austin? Oh.
Hi, sorry, I think someone put me on mute. I do apologise for that. So yeah, thank you, Chair. I do appreciate obviously your work for service has done and gone obviously from silver to gold and has made a lot of progress in, and the work obviously you're doing to correct some of the areas which are weak on. But my main concern is, and only because there's also linked in other surveys we've done with staff, is there is obviously with some staff still a feeling of lack of communication and a lack of not being valued, and it is coming in obviously in every single major work we're undertaking. So, and particularly obviously you've mentioned obviously issues around how some managers behave and communicate compared to others, and obviously I just wanted to see specific steps, obviously, which are going to help, obviously, all managers improve, and how we obviously listen and communicate with staff more. Because obviously, not all staff feedback will be able to be taken on, but how we obviously make them feel that we do appreciate them, even if we don't act on their suggestions.
Yes, good question. Yes. Thanks, Councillor. I think there's a few areas there to discuss. I think around the recognition, which is what I talked about staff making sure that they feel valued. So there's a number of things to be put in place, and I mentioned the Shout Forum, and that's been a really great engagement tool for us in terms of listening to some of the issues that our staff feel. I think COVID has brought an extra layer of complexity to us as an organisation as well. So we've been undertaking a great deal of work in terms of how we communicate with our staff to keep those communication at a high level throughout the last period of 2 years. And that's been a difficult process, but I think we've achieved that and been quite successful in that communication as well. All the station visits that I undertake, which are quite frequent and regular, we do have these face-to-face discussions with staff and to address any sort of issues or concerns that they may have. So there's a number of ways in which our staff can raise any issues, or and those are always fed back through and discussed at SMT and ELT levels as well, to ensure that we are providing that layer of support and value to our staff, because that's quite important to us as an organisation. So I guess the telling will be in the next round of IIP surveys, if that's a journey we want to take in February 2023. So that'll be quite a benchmark for us to see how we've improved over the last 5 years.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you for that. Building on that, I'm very much, so congratulations on achieving the goals. I'm very much looking forward to hearing more at future committees around how that involvement and engagement with staff is going, and particularly the difference that it's making, the outcomes that it's having. I noted that while you got higher than the response rate required for the survey, in some places it did look to be particularly low. Not expecting individual comment on that, but just very interested as to how you're going to tackle that going forward in terms of that low response rate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I think this discussion's being held at the moment in terms of where the practitioner from IIP revisits the service. And I guess this is part of the process going forward, is to ensure that, how do we engage with staff? What process do we use for that? The interview process is, covering large different areas of the service and different roles within the service to give us that breadth of information. But again, it'll be about those people that we don't engage with on a face-to-face basis. What opportunities do we give them then to represent and give a viewpoint? So that'll be through the electronic processes, etc. But it may be that we'll use some forum-based experience as well going forward. So we're exploring a few different areas about the next steps for IIP in 2023.
Can I just add to that? So what we did last time around as well is we did a sort of IIP said, and this is what our response has been, so that people can see the actions that we're taking in order to improve upon some of the feedback that we received in IIP. I think engagement is always a challenge for us, because we've got 47 stations, but as Dean says, the visits that he and colleagues do, out with teams, just opening up that dialogue with people to understand what their issues are and how we can resolve them. But yeah, trying to close those loops and almost trying to get to a place where people feel when they make a comment that we are listening and we are dealing with it, so we close that gap for them. And just to add, so one thing I was thinking about when Dean mentioned value in our staff, one thing that the chief did recently was he sent a letter out to every member of the service thanking them for their service over the last 2 years. And And it was really quite a powerful letter, I think, and it, you know, I'm sure it would be interesting to see how that was received across the service. But you know, a way of saying thank you through a very individually addressed letter was quite something to, you know, to hit your doorstep and read it when I come back from leave. It was really great.
Yeah.
So.
And may I, on behalf of this committee, thank you for all the achievements that you've had within your department.
Yeah.
So far.
Okay.
Thank you. Nobody else? Okay, if we could go on then to item 8, update on personal review.
I'll pick this up. Yes, thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. Slight variation on the theme that Dean was referring to then in terms of IIP and valuing our staff. Certainly for those new members on the committee, just to give you a bit of a background, we introduced what we termed the personal review process back in April of last year. The first year is a lot of work that went into it initially. We've attempted to introduce appraisal processes over the years, but this one has landed with particular success, and is something that we're really pleased about, certainly in our first review over the past 12 months. As I said, it came into being in April 2021. The completion rate in the first year, as it indicates there in the summary, was 74%. So pretty much 3/4 of all our staff have received a personal review, a figure which exceeds anything we've achieved previously. And it's obviously hit a note with individuals, and certainly the comments we've had back off individual members of staff and the trade unions is that it's being received very positively. The actual process itself captures a number of different areas in terms of the individual's well-being. We spoke about well-being just a while ago. The well-being of individuals, their aspirations, their career aspirations, their objectives for the forthcoming year. So everything that a good appraisal process should include. And as I say, it's been particularly well received by all concerned. The actual development objectives, etc., and strength and development areas for individual members of staff is tied in not only to their job description, but to the National Fire Chiefs Council leadership framework, which all fire and rescue services in the UK are working to. So there's a bedrock there of a framework, if you like, that we can work to. The reviews themselves are captured on a digital system, and I think this might be one of the reasons why it has been so well received. There was a lot of writing. I can speak from first-hand experience. There's a lot of writing involved in previous appraisal processes. But we've been able to use the service's core HR product to log down and record personal reviews for the manager and the employee to review at any given time, to check up on their objectives, their progress against objectives, etc. So it's quite a slick process, but one that we are still looking to streamline further still. Certainly in terms of the well-being discussions, there were individuals who said it was great that my manager was asking me how I felt, what my physical and mental well-being were. And on the back of the first year, we've had 108 referrals in total for specialist support, not just occupational health, but health and safety, training, development opportunities, etc. So there's been a lot of referrals as a result of the first year's work. And I mentioned earlier about refining the process. We're also looking at linking in individuals who are ready for the technical tests. So these are individuals who wish to demonstrate their technical competence in advance of going through the next promotion process. And we're also looking at linking in the continuous professional development payments. That is at this moment in time a separate process, but if we could link that into individuals' personal reviews so that a box is ticked, which automatically progresses their payment for that particular year. So streamlining opportunities, reducing some of the administration involved in other areas, and perhaps tying them all into this one. I wish the head of learning and development was here today, because I'm stealing some of her credit, but Serena Forders and her learning and development team have worked their socks off in getting this to where we are at the moment. And they've given us significant momentum moving into, well, the current year as is, but certainly a very positive viewpoint from all throughout the service. And And these personal reviews are undertaken from the executive leadership team downwards. So every individual, whether they a part-time cook on a station or the chief fire officer, etc., has received it. Well, certainly 3/4 of individuals last year received a personal review, and that's a figure we're looking to build on in the current year. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Could you pass on our congratulations
Yes,
on this well done report?
will do.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other member? No, somebody move, we vote? Move. Thank you. If we could go on then to the firefighters pension scheme, Alison, doing this?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. So the Fire and Rescue Authority is the scheme manager for firefighter pensions. So the HR and Equalities Committee is the route for monitoring the governance aspects of the Welsh Government circulars in relation to pensions. So all circulars are sent directly to the Chief Fire Officer from Welsh Government, and these are then progressed into the relevant area or team. And what you've got as Appendix 1 on page 129 is a list of the Welsh Government circulars. Now, there are some that relates to other items, but I've captured them there for you to see for information. But the Fire Authority is the scheme manager for pensions for firefighters. So it's the pensions ones in particular that you will be interested in. But what you will see is they come in number order, starting on February 2022 with the revalorisation of pensions with an effective date of the 11th of April. So what's happened with that circular is these are shared with our pensions administrator, so that's RCT Pensions, and they are shared with our internal pensions team so that they can take action. Next one is around long service and good conduct medals. This one is just for information and sets out the arrangements and the policy approach to issuing those medals. The FRS 03 is around pensions top-up grant. Again, that would have been shared with our RCT pensions administrator and internal pensions team, as would 04, which is around the cost cap and valuation of pensions. And then the final two are relate to performance and statistics, and they would have been shared internally with our performance teams. So this is for information and to share with you the actions that we've taken. I'll pause there. Any questions in relating to any of those?
Any questions? No, just note the actions implemented. Okay. Thank you, everybody. If we could go on to the occupational health unit report, then please.
Yes, certainly I'll introduce this, Chair. Yes, the occupational health unit I mentioned previously, as members will be aware, we're the only fire and rescue service in Wales that has its own in-house occupational health unit, and that facility has really come to the fore. They've been a great asset to the service ever since it was introduced, but certainly they've come to the fore in the last 2 years during the pandemic. And the in-house support we've had and first-hand information in terms of changes to medical stance, best practice, etc., etc. So they've really been a godsend. But I've asked Ruth Hazel. Ruth has just dialed in. I've asked Ruth just to come in and cover off this report. Ruth is our senior occupational health nurse. Is at the forefront of all that's going over in Oc Health over there in Pontyclun. So I can just hand over to Ruth and she'll take us through the report. Thanks, Ruth.
Okay, thanks. Can I just check? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep, fine, yeah. So I just want to echo really what Andrew has said, because I think there's some new members. So I'm the senior occupational health nurse in occupational health in Pontyclun. We've got 3 doctors, 2 nurses, 3 admin, hopefully to have another one, 2 health and fitness advisors. We have a physiotherapist every Tuesday. We've got counsellors 3 days a week, and we've got a partnership with psychotherapy in UHW in the Heath. So it's a very established occupational health. And like Andrew said, I think being in-house, we've got a really good understanding of the service. You're there for immediate medical support if required. We're able to attend meetings frequently, like especially through COVID. You know, we had the weekly critical incident meetings, so we would attend them. So there are huge benefits to having an in-house over outsourcing to agency. So with regards to the report, I know you've all had a copy of the report, but just to briefly go over parts of it. I think we've had an interesting 2 years with COVID, as you can imagine. So the ways of working were completely different for us, but I think we adapted quite well to being in the clinic initially in 2020. Then we were working from home, and thankfully over the last, I'd say, definitely a year or so, we've been back into work, and now we're all back in 5 days a week, so all back to face-to-face appointments. Just looking at some of the stats, if we look at table 1 with regards to the appointments, you can see that we've approximately had 700 more appointments this year. So we've been very busy, but a lot to do that. I wouldn't say it was all to do with COVID as such, as with regards to anxiety and things like that. It was more to do with probably there's significant delays with the NHS at the moment with regards to senior GP, physiotherapy, consultants. So obviously we're able to assist with that. So the referrals and everything else coming in increased. So definitely the workload hasn't decreased over the last year, it's increased quite significantly, but we've managed that by temporarily increasing doctors' hours. We've increased the counselling days, just to bring all the waiting lists down and just to continue providing quite an efficient service. Routine medical surveillance can now go ahead again, which is great. So we've started that in May. It was the Health and Safety Executive put a pause on things like lung function testing because of the risks with regards to COVID, but that's all back up and running again now. With regards to table 2 with the fitness testing, that's remained quite consistent. It was quite low risk, really. They were able to go out to station and do fitness testing while keeping distance and cleaning down machines. So with regards to their figures, they've been very consistent over the last, I suppose, year, definitely, you know, as they are, and it was normal. Table 3 shows more about our did not attend or unable to attend. We used to record unable to attend a lot, but I didn't include it this year because unable to attend for us a lot this year was staff absences due to COVID. And if we had to cancel due to COVID, obviously we cancel, but most appointments are rebooked. So I kept the did not attend, which was 153 for the year, but that's also did not answer the telephone. The way our admin would record that is if somebody didn't answer a telephone, sometimes immediately they would change it to a did not answer. But the problem with this is somebody might have been looking after their child at home and didn't answer straight away, but could ring back within 10-15 minutes. So what I've asked our admin staff to do now is leave it until the end of the day before putting did not answer, because generally a lot of people were ringing back. We are looking in the future, as mentioned previously, like a patient management system, because as you know, with like GP surgeries, hospitals, they tend to send out text message reminders. So we're going to be looking into something like that in the future, which hopefully then will reduce that figure further. Table 4 is looking at the referrals overall, and they increased by about 100. But like I said earlier with the appointments, NHS has got significant delays, therefore more referrals coming in to us. With regards to mental health, it's quite a positive step really, because more people are finding it easier to refer into us if they are struggling in work or at home or with personal life. We've also got a self-referral form, so people with any mental health issues are able to self-refer to us confidentially, and we support them. So the numbers have gone up, but that can only be a good thing really for us. Table 5 is regards to our services with Spire hospitals. And as I already explained, the increase there with the specialist referral scans are due to the significant delays with the NHS. So I think at the moment with the NHS, if you're waiting for an MRI scan, you're probably 3 months. With us at the moment with Spire is probably about 2 weeks. And then to see a consultant at the moment in the NHS, I would dread to think how long that is at the moment, because they're obviously under huge demand. But obviously through Spire, people are getting seen within 2 to 3 weeks. With regards to surgery, reduced slightly, and that's just because a lot of the specialists were working for the NHS to try and help their backlog. So they weren't as available to do surgery. They were probably doing surgery every 3 weeks for Spire, whereas they would probably do normally 1 day a week. With regards to our counselling, you can see the referrals have reduced very slightly, but we've increased in counselling days, like I've mentioned. So our counselling days now are at, that's table 6 and 7. Our counselling days are at a temporary increase from 1 day a week to 3 days a week. But what we found was this: we were reducing waiting times from about 6 to 8 weeks down to about 2 to 3 weeks at present, which is great. I think for your GP to wait for counselling can be anything up to 12 weeks. So the fact that we can get somebody in and start counselling within 2 to 3 weeks is great. They were very, DNAs for the year with counselling was 25. That's not a huge number. A lot of people just being forgetful, but the counselling service have now got a text message reminder which sends a text message the day before, so that is improving. Just touching on awareness raising events, obviously these were limited due to COVID. We weren't able to go out as much as we'd like, so a lot of things were done by the intranet. We did virtual nutrition talks in the past, but myself and the other nurse, we did manage to do 6, I think it was, station visits in November. So we went out to 6 stations. We offered blood pressure checks, cholesterol checks, blood sugar checks, which always goes down very well. We get asked quite a lot to go out and do things like that. It is, obviously we've got busy clinics at the moment, so we're trying to fit it in. But we've decided that instead of doing a designated an event as such for going out to stations, we're just incorporating it into our daily work. So at least once a month we'll be going out to a station or work location and offering these free checks. So I think we're going to New Inn station now next week. With regards to the health and fitness advisors, you can read there, they're very proactive with everything they've been doing, working on nutrition videos. They've done the workout of the week, which is posted every week in the routine notice, and I think it was last week or the week before, Walking Wednesdays has started. So they're taking a group of people out from headquarters for a half-hour walk just to get some exercise and obviously to help with their well-being. But generally, that's a brief overview of the report. But if anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any member? Ben?
Yeah, on page 1, on 4.1, where we item 1, 2, 4, post-incident surveillance of firefighters exposed to toxic and hazardous substances. A couple of weeks ago, I read in the paper that firefighters have been exposed to hazardous substances and they think it caused cancer. What are we doing to look at that and try to combat that, please?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last bit of that. Sorry, it just went a bit fuzzy. What is that regarding page 141, was it?
Yeah, on 4.1, firefighters have been exposed to hazardous substance. I read in the paper a few weeks ago that when firefighters have been exposed to certain substances causing cancer, what are we doing as a service to sort of combat that and look into that situation?
Right, well, most recently, yeah, I think our consultant looks into this quite often, but more recently, we're looking into the breathing apparatus, so the exposure of fumes and stuff like that, and heat stress we're looking at. So at present, with our breathing apparatus instructors, I think they had somebody come in and give a talk on research they've been doing with regards to that. There's not enough. What they were trying to say is there hasn't been enough information gathered for so many years to be able to say exactly what is causing this. So they're starting to collate all this information now, so they've got some stats going forward. But what we do for our breathing apparatus instructors is that they're on an annual, because they're exposed more frequently. On a station they might only go out and be exposed, it could be once a month even, but on the instructors are obviously going into the hot environment, the hot rooms, most days. They do so many ways a week. So what we do is we do annual medicals on them, but they also complete a health questionnaire form every month that gets sent in to us, and we review them. And then if there's any risks identified on there that we notice that they take any symptoms at all, then they're brought in for an appointment and an assessment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other member? Adrian?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was lucky enough to go to the new occupational health unit when it moved, obviously before COVID. I was just wondering if it would be a good idea at the next full meeting that if any new members or old members would like to go over to Pontyclean and have a look at the centre, because like I say, when it opened, like I say, we was really very impressed with it. So just a suggestion, maybe we could organise that at the next full meeting.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll be taken on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
probably
thank-
changed even
thank-
slightly since then as well, so you can come and see the slight changes, with the new media screens put up and things like that. So it'd be good to see that.
Yeah, they won there when we attended the first time, but I know they was in the pipeline, so it'd be interesting for all members really to go and have a look at it. Thanks, Chair.
And I don't want my blood pressure took when I'm there.
I was only doing it because I want an MRI scan.
Okay, thank you, everybody. If we could go on to the next report, the annual grievance, Andrew.
Yes, I'll pick this up, Chair.
Sorry, Chair, and could we have a mover?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, members will note that we report annually on our discipline and grievance activities. We're duty bound to have procedures in place for these issues. And as the report states there, certainly in terms of numbers, looking at item 2, we've had 16 grievances in the year just gone 21-22, which compares with 6 the previous year. So naturally, a figure that's more than double the previous year sort of drew our attention, but it's only when you read into the rationale for it. A number of those grievances from members of staff who were unable to get their leave when they wished, or their public holidays, etc. And that was largely down to the squeeze of the absence levels, not only sickness levels, but self-isolation, etc. throughout the pandemic. So that had a detrimental impact on individuals who were in the workplace being able to take their leave at the appropriate time. So we have got a working group that's been put together to look and work through that. But I think there's recognition on those individuals, and quite a number actually withdrew their grievances when going through the informal stage 1, when it was explained to them the difficulties that the service were under. At the end of the day, we're here to provide a 24/7 service. So as much as you'd like people to be able to take their leave as and when they wish, it's not always possible. So that was the primary reason for the significant increase in the number of grievances. And then in 2 and 3, you can see that the majority, well, the vast majority, 15 of them were from full-time employees, and then 1 was received from a corporate member of staff. In terms of discipline, there were 15, so conversely, there were far less in this most recent year. There were 15 in comparison to the 26 that were reported in 2021. And a breakdown there of 3 relating to corporate members of staff, 5 to on-call, and 7 to full-time employees. And it's worth pointing out that disciplinary action can be taken, or certainly considered, in light of activities that take place within the workplace, and sometimes outside of the workplace. Certainly if individuals are found guilty of criminal conduct through the courts, then that is something we would look at to see whether or not the actual nature of the offence, if you like, breaches our values there anyway, or shape or form. So 224 there indicates the outcomes of the disciplinary cases. As you can see, one individual was dismissed, 2 ended up on a final written warning, and 2 on a written warning. And it's noteworthy in 2.2.5 that there were no appeals to any of the outcomes of the disciplinary hearing. So from my perspective, certainly I'd like to think that individuals are being given a fair hearing, and we are coming up with a fair level of warning, if you like. That's what I read from individuals not appealing the awards that they received. And that's pretty much it, really. There's a lot of work goes into this. You can imagine this is just 2 or 3 pages, but the work that goes into preparing disciplinary cases, the investigation that goes into each disciplinary issue. And we've been complimented previously at employment tribunals. Thankfully, we haven't attended one in recent years, but certainly previous to that, we've invariably been complimented on the nature, the extent, and the depth of our investigations. Yeah. So having our 2 resolution officers in-house has proven dividends in that instance. So
thank you, Andrew. I noted 5 were addressed through managerial action, which I think is, well done.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Any other member? No? Well, somebody
One
just,
dismissal over the number of staff here is,
Yes,
Yeah.
is very good, isn't
it
it?
is.
Yeah.
It is.
yeah,
Pity we had zero, but you know, these things
Yes,
happen.
they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
if somebody could note the report, yeah, thank you, Glenn. If we could then go up to 12 as a presentation, is it?
This is the job
Yeah.
evaluation.
Yeah.
Just a verbal presentation of myself. First of all, apologies. We haven't been able to conclude the job evaluation process to an extent that we're able to present you with a full and final outcome and figures, etc.
Well, perhaps we can move that to a further
The next meeting,
yeah,
it will
if
all
that's
be
possible.
done by the next meeting.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
just want to give a very brief overview, really,
Okay, yeah.
of where we're at. And again, for new members on the call as well. You'll be aware that we've introduced a job evaluation process. We started it in late 2020. It's taken slightly longer than envisaged. I'll come on to some of the reasons for that. But the previous job evaluation exercise was taken in 2022, I think it was. So pretty much 18, 19 years later. And as we're all aware, jobs change over that time, and there has been some significant change in some roles within the organisation. So just some basic facts and figures. There were 172 posts that were evaluated. And they covered around about 330 staff. As you're aware, you'll have more than one cook, you'll have more than one motor vehicle technician, etc., etc. So actually, 172 distinct posts. In terms of the governance that we wrapped around it, we set up a job evaluation program board, which invariably consists of the heads of service, just to give it that strategic direction, and guidance would be received from the executive leadership team. And the beauty of having that program board is there was an element of consistency across the service in terms of our approach to it, and also ensuring that the moderation process, which is a key part of it, is undertaken in a fair and consistent manner. We actually introduced consultants from PLAT. PLAT are the company that designed the gauge system, which is well used throughout the public sector in the UK. And the delays I mentioned earlier, the delays in the appeals process were primarily through ill health of certain members of staff and bereavement in one or two instances as well, which delayed it, hence today being more of a verbal update than a formal presentation. Of the 172 posts that were evaluated, we received 80 appeals, of which 5 were withdrawn before they actually came to the appeal interview. There's been a number of those that have been successful, and some of those that were successful at appeal were those that had reduced in grade previously, so they got back to their previous grade, if you like. But certainly the figures at this moment in time suggest that there will be less than 10 individuals who have decreased in grade as a result of this process. So I think the unions are pleased, because certainly at the outset, any job evaluation process is one that concerns people. It is difficult, especially in the current climate. And when we set out on this process, we weren't aware of the cost of living crisis that was coming down the line, and which we're in the middle of now. So it is difficult. Those individuals are protected. Their salary is protected for a period of 3 years as well, so they're not suffering the reduction in monetary terms at this very moment in time. So there's some of the very bare facts that I just wanted to point out to you today. But you'll have a full and comprehensive paper to sign off at the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Any member, or shall we wait for the more fuller report? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
If we could go to the forward work programme. Any questions on that, or any comments to be made? No?
No, just to say we'll add job evaluation into the next meeting. One observation from me is that the February meeting looks very full. So we may, I suggest, need to have a look at an opportunity to shift some of the February items into November, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, yeah, thank you. Items as urgent by me? No, none? Right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Stay cool.